Yeah, boy, it's August 14th, and it's episode 163, and this is the Fantasy Football Auctioneer Podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer Podcast is the Fantasy Football Auctioneer Podcast is, I don't even know what the hell I'm saying right now, you guys. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had a Caesar out on the deck before we came. I'm sitting in my truck outside of a marina right now so I can grab some Wi-Fi. It's the middle of the night. People think I'm probably stalking the campground, but we had to record the pod. So I don't know what we're doing, but we're here. The two of us are here. The three of us are here. We got Mr. Blister sitting in the dumper.
It's a train wreck tonight, folks. It's a train wreck.
Good.
The fantasy football auction is a train wreck here. You got a guy in a parking lot.
It's the official podcast of the fantasyfootballauction.com.
Yeehaw!
All right, Blister, how are you doing tonight?
Just fun, wonderful. Have a whole house full of in-laws, and I'm in my bathroom potting.
How's that treating you?
Yeah, I won't say a whole lot because anybody probably
They'll
knows.
Listen.
Anybody knows. No, nobody will listen.
Okay. That's good. Hey, and Slim, thanks for pressing record tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I'm feeling good. Probably won't feel so good in the morning. It's been a long day. Had the kids swimming in a buddy's pool. Dad got into a few, what's that Adam Sandler bit? Got into a few, daiquiris. Tries to get into the water skiing. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I've only had a couple daiquiris. Anyway, it's kind of what I feel like right now. My wife was there, so she drove the kids home every day. Don't worry. Don't be tweeting at me.
Everybody's good. And the kids are in bed. The kids are in bed, safe and sound.
We got teeth brushed. Everyone's in bed. Everyone's fed. It's all good. Don't call family.
Awesome. Awesome. So we've got a ad lib show for you tonight, as you can tell by the tremendous intro, which will probably mean it'll be one of our better shows. We're going to talk some strategy. We've got our big auction coming up in a couple weeks, so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're planning to get ready for that. Maybe we'll talk some of the latest NFL news, because there's been some pretty major movement and suspensions since our last pod. So without further ado, guys, if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. All right, so like I said, we're going to break down some of the ways we're preparing for our auctions. We're going to talk some NFL news and whatnot, and let's just get rolling. So, guys, busy week. I love walking through Walmart and getting chirped from the bread aisle from the newest member of our auction league. And so then I had to go in and, make the small talk. It was a big week in the last week was a pretty big week in football. Slim, what do you think about the trades?
Oh, man. Well, as a Jordan Matthews owner, I will say I was pretty stoked in our dynasty, but then he broke his
Not so much anymore?
So,
yeah.
Pretty much deflated my owner. But, no, you know what? I think if you're a Sammy Watkins guy, I honestly don't think it changes his value much. And this is just coming, I guess, from a redraft perspective. It's, Jared Goff is what he is. Everybody. The funny thing is, I went on Twitter right after, because my mind was blown. I'll be honest. I was out furniture shopping that whole morning. I come home, I check Twitter, I see these two massive trades that happened, and I was kind of blown away. So I go on Twitter. I want to find out what happened, and I see these reactions of everybody. Oh, well, Sammy Watkins, this is great for him. This is great. Jared Goff, he was a rookie last year. He's going to be better. He's going to be better. Well, one, I saw JJ Zacharyson tweet this, and I totally agree. Show me stats from a rookie quarterback that were as shitty as Jared Goff's that actually ended up being a good NFL quarterback. So the argument that he can only get better is garbage, because they can't always get better. Sometimes you are what you are. And I think Jared Goff is what he is. Now, does that mean that he's that much worse than Tyrod Taylor? Well, he is worse. I love Tyrod Taylor. I think he's pretty good. But Tyrod Taylor does a lot with his legs. I do think that the offensive coordinator in LA is going to work to get Watkins the ball. That being said, I don't think anything changes much. I think the volume is probably going to be similar. Production is probably going to be similar. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
If you can go and say you're in a redraft and you traded, or you already did your draft, and you can go and trade, and maybe you can get Watkins now for cheap because somebody's just like thinks LA is the kiss of death. I would go do that in our dynasty league.
Yeah.
Any dynasty league, I would try and do that as well. As far as Jordan Matthews goes, I think that's a big boost for him, to be honest, because he goes in as a number one wide receiver. And people think that Jordan Matthews is like this slot guy. Oh, he can't do it. You know what, man? He has shown improvement every year over the last few years in college and in the pros. Last year was the one blip on the radar, whether that's injury, could be because he was a rookie quarterback. Maybe he just flatlined. Who knows? But I'm willing to bet that the progression continues, and now he's going to get number one wide receiver volume. I think that's a big boost. If you're Jordan Matthews owner, you should be kind of happy. Obviously, you'll break your sternum like a sissy. Then that's not a good thing. But, I mean, the fact that he went there, that's a good thing. It was rumored for a long time that he was going to get traded. Weren't sure if it was going to happen. It seemed like the writing was maybe on the wall, and they were pumping the tires at Aguilar, which was kind of silly because I think he still sucks. But anyway, that's my kind of take on that trade, at least. Kind of a wash for Watkins, and I think it's an uptick a little bit for Jordan.
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat too. The only thing is in my other friends and family dyno that we started, I made a trade and had a Robert Woods throw-in coming my way, and I was pretty pumped about it because I thought, you know what, Robert Woods, the Rams, this is going to be a good thing, young receiver, yada yada yada. Trade goes through. I give myself a little pumpernickel. I check Twitter and see the Sammy Watkins trade went through, and all of a sudden Robert Woods doesn't look like such a great throw-in anymore. But that's all right. We'll be okay. Lister, you sitting on the can right now, how do you think things went with this trade?
Well, I downgraded Sammy Watkins to 27th now in my rankings, and could fall further yet depending on what I see in the next little while. And I have Jordan Matthews around 43rd. No, Jordan Matthews wasn't that great when he was relied on as a number one in Philadelphia. I think he's better as a number two receiver. I think he's, from Wentz to Tyrod for him, that could be a wash. Like Slim said, Tyrod does put up fantasy points as a quarterback, but a lot of it has to do with his legs. Sammy in LA, I'm not excited about that at all. I don't think they have a great team. I really don't have a lot of faith in him. I actually thought about maybe drafting him again this year, giving him a second chance after he disappointed me so much last year. But what's the move to LA that just seals the deal? I'm not even going to touch him. So, unless he was an unbelievable steal. But don't have a lot of confidence in Sammy. So it was an interesting trade. I think the Buffalo did well with the trade. Overall, I would take Matthews and trade Sammy for the production they've got out of him, and they also upgraded their draft picks, I believe, in the process. So I think they did a pretty good job. So hats off to Buffalo for jumping on that. But fantasy-wise, I'd rather not take either of those guys this year and let somebody else in the redraft take them. And if I'm wrong, good for them, and if I'm right, well, so be it.
All right, and then the other big piece of news since our last podcast was the Zeke news.
Yeah.
6 games for Zeke. Slim, what does this do for Zeke as far as your tiering and your auction drafting?
It's good you ask. Hold on a second. I'm going to go on Twitter. Because I'll be honest,
Oh, that's right, because you pulled this today.
I did. I wanted to know what people were thinking. Because for me personally, and I know Blister probably is going to agree with me because he thought this probably before. I think Zeke's untouchable. I really think he is. I think that there's always going to be one person in every draft who's going to pay probably, I don't want to say near, like, going to pay market dollar, but very, 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 very close. So say right now he goes for $52. I think somebody's going to pay over $40 for him every time. I will never pay that for a running back who is going to miss 6 games. Guaranteed. Guaranteed to miss 6 games. Guaranteed. So I get he's awesome. He could come back and be great for the fantasy playoff. But I might go 0-6 over that span if I buy him. And then it doesn't matter. So I want somebody. In fact, I'm going to go in and probably I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm going to go in and tell people, oh, man, there's a good chance that, he's filing this thing. He might play week 1 and week 2, and who knows what happens. I want someone to buy him, and I want someone to buy him for big. So I am going to pump the tires on him, spend your money, take him. Please, somebody. It won't be me. I don't think it's going to be anybody on our podcast. I'm sure I'll let you get to that. But take him, and hopefully it cripples your team because you're going to spend a shitball of money for a guy who's probably not going to lead to a ton of wins.
And the thing with that too, and I agree with Slim, like you miss 6 games and some guys are going to think, well, hey, if I get him for $40, that's a steal, man. I'll still have him for down the playoff stretch. Yeah, but if you're spending $40 or more, that's a very quality player. And if you don't make, like a lot of leagues have gone down to a 6-man or a 4-team playoff, so top 4 make it to the playoffs, bottom 8 are out, or top 6 make it, the first 2 teams get a bye. Well, man, you're hurting your chances if it's 6 teams. Like our league has been so tight the last few years there, where 7 and 6 teams are getting in, or it's been so close that you're really taking your chance. If you go and drop 4 of those first 6 games or worse, man, you're probably not getting in the playoffs. So, you know what? Have at it, boys. Go buy them up, but
go buy Melvin Gordon or somebody else. Like, Jesus Christ,
I'll take
why
Melvin.
would you waste your money? Like,
give me some Melvin.
So just to go back to this, the Twitter poll I ran today, I mean, it's still going on. There's still 10 hours left, so this is a big grain of salt, but I think it'll give us a pretty fair idea. So 53 votes in. Question was, in a PPR auction draft, what would you be willing to pay for Zeke, given what we know at the moment? Because yes, there could be things change. I do have a feeling maybe the suspension gets reduced, but if you're drafting this weekend or you drafted last weekend, that doesn't mean shit to you. So the options were still, I'll still pay over $45, 2% voted for that, $35 to $45, 15%, $25 to $35, 62% said they would do that, and 21% said he has to be under $25. Now, the guys that said $25 to $35, I still have a hard time believing that. It's great to say that, but when you get into a draft, especially a live draft, but any draft, you get the juices flowing a little bit. I found it. I've done it with Levy and Bell in the past, so I can say this. You bid, and maybe he's going really cheap, and maybe you're the price enforcer guy. You bid a little bit, and now he's going. You think, yeah, it's still pretty cheap, and you almost kind of maybe talk yourself into some things. And so I think that $35, there's going to be somebody in every draft that wants to pay more than that. I almost guarantee it, especially if there's booze involved in the draft. So, if there is, get some people drunk and let them do their thing. But anyway.
Well, and that's appropriate. You put up the poll. Sorry if I was, you can't see me on a video, which is good. I'm swatting mosquitoes out of the way. I put the windows down because I got the auxiliary on and it's hot as hell in this truck. This is not the way to podcast. But
no,
we're committed.
So that was when you're on summer vacation.
When you're on summer vacation, that's right. So Blister, I voted on the poll. You were busy on some big sports boat going to, I picked under $25. Are you $5 or over $25 for Zeke?
For Zeke? Oh, I think I might have voted 25 to 35, but I'd prefer the $25 end of it. I'd prefer not to even take Zeke and take Ty Montgomery for $25 instead.
Boy. Yeah.
What?
Oh, you heard that.
That's
hear
mine.
that.
Myself some Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
You know what, boys? We're gonna fight over the same guys. It's gonna be Ty Montgomery. For this year now, you guys, I think, are on the Danny Woodhead bandwagon. We're probably going to have to...
I forgot about Danny Woodhead.
We're going to have to drop some gloves at the draft over that.
No, but I've done like, you know the mock... I would talk to you guys about this every year. I think the mock draft world championships on Scout, right? You just mock draft in minutes, and I usually, the first year I might have put in 10 teams, and then maybe 20, and then, I just remembered about it again the other day, so I probably drafted
47 teams in.
42, I think, right now. And but I haven't seen Danny Woodhead's name once on there yet. He hasn't been on one of my teams, so I got to keep an eye out for Danny Woodhead. I don't know if he's getting drafted. I mean, I've tried to mix it up every time, but find out when you get to the last 5 or 6 picks, the same guys are out there all the time, so it's kind of interesting. But
all right, well, speaking of setting up for your draft, Blister's talking. I mean, even doing that, right? Doing the mock drafts, if it's standard snake drafts, it's still practice about that, Blisters, that you're on the clock always, right? So you need to make a decision, and you need to make one now. And so I kind of like that idea for practice when you're sitting in your live auction and you're in a bidding war. When do you stop? When do you start? Like what happens? And you need to be able to react now. So you need to know your guys. You need to know your values. You need to know your tiers. So I like that idea even of practicing that way. Slim, what are some things right now you're doing to get yourself geared up? Our big ones in about 12 days or so?
Yeah, I'm just fine-tuning my budgets right now, I'll be honest. This sounds terrible, I still haven't made my tiers, although I have kind of mentally. I haven't put them onto paper and done that yet. I usually like to wait right till the end to do my tiers. You guys know how I feel about rankings and shit. Like, I hate that stuff. Tiers are valuable. Rankings, I think, are pointless for a lot of people, because you should be ranking your own people for your leagues, because it's your league. You know people in your league that's scoring. You know that league. It should be a little bit more intimate to you. Why steal our rankings to do anything? But yeah, that's a great job of selling our shit, I guess, you guys. But the tiers actually, I think, mean something, because now you're lumping certain players that you like amongst other people in that same kind of category for you. Whether it's points, like I like to kind of tier by points, what I think of as final points that you're going to get in a year. Some people might like to tier based on average fantasy points per week, things like that. All valuable though. Tier guys and likewise things. I'll be doing that very shortly, which is going to help me further fine-tune my budgets. But even just when I go to draft, it's going to help me give me a basis of when I see players going and I can cross them off, I know where there could potentially be value. Instead of looking at Matthew Berry's piece of shit 300 player cheat sheet.
Hey, big warnings by Matt Berry on Twitter today. Don't draft a quarterback too early. Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious. Yeah.
Tell Fabiano that. But yeah, so I'm doing that, and the next thing, like I said, I'm always fine-tuning my budgets. It's maybe a sickness to an extent. Right now I've got 4 that are on the go, and every couple days I kind of like to peek at the spreadsheet, and I'll just look and say, can I pull $2 from here and move it there? And I move this here, and it's probably all a net zero. I probably move so much shit that it doesn't actually, it all ends up back in roughly the same place, but I still like to do that. I kind of, based on different values that I see with players and things, I say, you're going to have to spend this much at wide receiver 3, because instead of $12, I know I can spend $9 and still get all these guys or most of these guys, and I can move this $3 somewhere else, and little things like that. So essentially, I'm just tweaking things right now to try and maximize upside and fantasy points that I think I can get.
Blister, how about besides making pancakes tomorrow morning for the in-laws, what are you doing to get yourself ready for the big draft?
Not enough right now. I have a draft tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was supposed to do it tonight, but I didn't think I'd be back to even do this, so I rearranged to move it to tomorrow. So that'll be fun, and it's not the same format though. It's not a Superflex. I did change it to half-point PPR. I didn't do any points per carry, but it'll be interesting just to get back into it. A draft. I've ran it for a few years now. So I'll do that. I haven't been mocking nearly enough. I don't feel like I do. As we're speaking, I'm tweaking my tiers and my ranks. And when I go to the draft, I just basically take my tier sheet, and I still have to sit down and think, okay, this is how much I want to spend at each position, roughly. Like that'll be my original thought process, and then I'll go from there, and I'll reallocate money as it comes up or take away from some areas. But you guys talked about the Superflex is new to our auction this year, and how Slim says too he thinks that there'll be a lot of money spent on quarterback. And like when we did that mock the other night with the Superflex, I was blown away how much money was spent on quarterback, and I just can't see that happening. I was tweaking an idea before, like Slim said, actually spending money on a Brady or a Rodgers or something like that. But I guess we'll just see how it goes. Was a Brady, Rodgers, even a Drew Brees? Yeah, I could probably stomach that, because I think you can get a lot of value down the road at some of the other positions, and if you can get a guy that's going to separate you from the pack with the potential points that they can get, that's great. But after that, I just can't see me spending big bucks on a quarterback. And I've taken it and tweaked it, and I've thrown our scoring system into some other sites that you can project the outcomes and stuff, and I can see the values sitting here in front of me. And yeah, you can look at each position and say, oh well, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are ranked to be the top quarterbacks at 360 points based on their projections and our scoring, and versus the top running or receivers, Antonio Brown projected at 278. So I guess I'm going to spend more on my quarterback, but that's not how I want to look at it. It's comparable to what you could get for, instead of spending 30 on Brady, maybe I only spend 8 and I get Cam Newton, and he's projected for 50 points less than Brady. Then I can spend more at another position where the difference isn't going to be, I'm going to gain. So basically what I'm saying is you're basically allocating money per point. You're not looking at the best, I got to get this player at the best rank, because it's how much do you lose by spending a little bit less and dropping down. The 7th ranked player, the 9th ranked player, does that allow me to get a higher ranked running back where the projection might be deeper between 1st and 7th or 1st and 12th and stuff like that? So that's kind of where I look at it, and then go from there. And it's projections, so that could all be garbage by the the weekend of the season. Things can change.
And whose projections too, right? And all those things.
Yeah. So,
but are you talked about tweaking your tiers currently? Those are all available to our members, right? I got them all dialed in on the website, so members can jump on. They can download Blister's tiers, tweak their own that way. He's kind of got them. Like killers and whatever. He's got little titles with them, so you can go in there and you can just
catchy. I like it.
Oh yeah. Just like click and drag.
Yeah, one thing that I should admit, one guy asked me to do this and I never did, but I don't have them ranked within the tier according to who I think is the best in that tier at the top. This is my tier, and because when I move them around, I'm not going to rejig the whole tier. This is a group in this tier. They're all worth relatively the same amount to me. I might look at that group at, the third tier of we'll go to the running backs, for example. And in my third tier, I have Zeke now. I moved him way down, obviously. And
what do you name that tier? What's it called?
Solid.
Solid.
What happened to my tier thing? It's gone. Damn it. Anyways, Anyways, so I might just take a look and I say, well, I really don't want this guy. I'd rather have this guy, and so on. So they're not ranked according to who I think is the best in that tier. That's for sure.
Right. But we've talked about that before, about drafting tiers rather than necessarily drafting players, right? Having your targets within the tier, but targeting tiers with the auction really is can be beneficial if you've created your own tiers.
For sure.
So, Slim, you are getting your tiers ready for the website? Maybe not your final tiers that you're going to walk into, but...
No, I will be... Once I kind of make them, I don't necessarily change them too much. It's kind of why I waited a little bit later this year. In years past, I've kind of done them earlier. And then I find it kind of a hassle, I'll be honest, to go back and
change them, yeah.
Well, it's not even the changing. It's easier to change rankings than it is the tiers, I find. So I'm kind of waiting, and I just want to see how things kind of shake out, watch a couple preseason games, and then just have this concrete thing set. So you should be looking for those to be on the website for sure by the end of this week.
Okay.
They'll be the winners, boys. So,
there you go. So on the website, if you $14.95, you get you the membership. You've got a bunch of articles on there that you can read that are auction specific, but really the meat and potatoes are the auction values over 300 plus players, our consensus ranks, 10 team, 12 team, 14 team average auction values. Also with our value indicators, so taking a look at positional ranks versus how much their AAV is, and we'll give you an indicator. If they're green on our spreadsheet, that means they're a value and go get them. If they're red, that means pump the brakes, buddy. You may not be finding any value here. And if you're just looking for that spreadsheet, we've had a few guys now starting to do this. If you head over on to our Patreon site, that's patreon.com/fantasyfootball-auction. If you go there, you can throw $5 in the kitty and get yourself a download of that spreadsheet. And what's good for that, if that's all you want, is just that meat and potatoes, is you can do like what Slim was saying, go in and create your own rankings and do what Blister does and create your own tiers, but you've got our stuff there already. If anything, the $5 saves you having to type all the crap out, right? I mean, if anything, and for me, sometimes it's worth the $5, I don't have to type it all out.
Well, I was just going to say, for $5 to get everybody's tiers and rankings for yourself, just to be able to do whatever you want with them. That's, for 2 large coffees that your local drive-thru.
Yeah,
I'd buy that.
Not bad. So shout out to now I'm going to drop his name. I want to say it's Troy on Twitter, who helped me work through the Patreon $5 drop there. So we worked for a little bit to make sure we got it dialed in. Had some more on there today come through. So you can get on there. Hey, and even if you don't want to buy the membership, or if you don't want to drop the 5 smash on the spreadsheets, you can even go on the Patreon site and throw a buck in the kitty there and just say, hey, thanks a lot for producing a auction only site.
I was just going to say, to me, the thing that's nice about Patreon, and this is going to be our sob story. If I had a metal can, I'd hit it. But you're looking at 3 regular dudes with kids, with families. We try to put out as much free content as we can. With free content is a lot of time. Time away. I know for me personally, we got a newborn kid. I get a lot of death stares when I want to go downstairs and podcast, or when I'm on the computer trying to do rankings in the morning with a cup of coffee. My wife's like, what the fuck are you doing? Kid is crying. Can you help me with this? And I'm like, I'm trying to, So these guys are no different either. We got families. It's time, and all it is just here's a buck. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the time. So, are we anything special? No, but we do take the times out of our day, out of our families' days, more importantly, to try and present this, because we like doing it, but we want to give it to you guys because we like to do it. So it's just kind of like a little thank you to say, hey guys, there you go. Thanks a lot.
I saw today Slim Fugazi put on Twitter that he registered for Patreon just so we can go around and throw $1 in the pot for different guys that he respects. And I thought, hey, that was pretty cool from someone who's in the industry that's going around saying thanks to others in the industry. So it's pretty cool.
That's one good thing about the industry is there is a lot of good guys. I mean, we see it with, like, we're all in the fishbowl, so we know, like, for example, what Scott Fish does with his fantasy cares and stuff like that. I thought I saw a thing like they raised like tens of thousands of dollars this year now and they use it to buy toys for kids on Christmas. Like, if we're all dads on this pod, and probably most of us that listen, like, that's pretty sweet. Like, for me, it's kind of, I think that's awesome that people that just do this for fun and out of their own time are gracious enough to donate their time and their money to, do something like that. The kids' toys on Christmas that don't normally get that shit. So I think that's pretty dope. So yeah, you guys should be doing the same thing, man.
There you go. So there's our sob story. It's pretty good. Hey, I'm sitting in a half ton at a marina. I drove down an old logging road to get here so we could pod. I mean, I screwed up the intro at that.
My abs can't take laughing at this stuff.
I know. And I'm pretty sure I left my son with like some pretty wicked sunstroke in the cabin with my wife.
There you go.
Pretty sure that there was a puke bucket, and I'm like, hey, is this a hold on to this frozen water bottle, kid? It'll be all right. I'm going to podcast. He goes, you're going to podcast at the landing? So there, yeah, put it in your armpit. That's exactly what I told him to do. And Blister's sitting on the shitter with his in-laws at the house. I mean, come on.
We're hardcore.
At least you're not laying in bed eating cookies and dropping crumbs in your bed anymore.
It would have been in there, but I thought it was too noisy. Kids still have to be chased to bed yet. So
you and the mother-in-law and father-in-law, it would have been too much, too crowded in there. Too crowded. Yeah. Anyways, all right. That's the sidebar. So getting prepped. That's where you guys are at. What I did. The first real good day I got to sit down and like my wife looked at me, she goes, what do you mean you're going to do fantasy football on the back deck? I said, well, I do so much with the website. I don't actually do anything for me. So today was for me. I poured myself Ross Tucker, Caesar, and sat on the back deck, and I actually hand bombed, took out the notepad and hand bombed out all of our rules, Slim. I went on the MFL site and looked under scoring and did all the things you told me to do, and I got all that
site.
Yeah, I know. Except for it said I was Mr. Blister at one point. I was Klinger at another point. I didn't know what the hell was happening. Anyways, I hand bombed all the rules. I hand bombed the roster spots, and then the first thing I did is probably what you guys probably do. I'm like, okay, how many bench spots? 8 bench spots, $2 each, $16. Okay, take that out of my 200. All right, next. What are my quarterbacks? What am I willing to spend? Take that out of my 200. Now, let's take a look at the tight end.
How much are you willing to spend on quarterback?
A few budgets that I've been working on. I've been kind of going back and forth between that $15 to $20 mark for the two. But it's like last year, I take Cam because he was a value, so I need to make sure I have spots that are available to find that cash if it happens. I'm like you guys, though. So we're in the first year of this Superflex. Who knows what the hell is going to happen at quarterback? It overspends for the big dogs, flush some of that money out. And number two, then that means there's less money to spend at those other positions. So that's my gear. But what I did is what hopefully a lot of the listeners are doing. I took our auction values, our AAVs, and I literally wrote down, let's say the top 40 running backs, top 40 wide receivers, and the top 20 running backs, and put their auction values there. And I put I put them in my order of my own rank. And then I put a little line where I broke down my tiers, and then I got to work. And it was like, all right, what if I spend $87 my RB1 and my RB2. What does that look like? And then away we go. And so what I found, and normally I don't do this, but from listening to you guys normally allocate money, right, for like RB1, RB2, RB3, or wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3.
But you have a range,
normally, and I don't normally do that. I normally just, like years past, I go in and I say $80 on running backs, having an idea that I want 2 third-tier running backs or whatever it is in my tiers. But this year I took a look at it and I thought, well, I'm going to maybe look at it the way you guys do and break down RB1 and RB2. And I enjoyed looking at it that way. So you guys taught me something, even though we've been doing this for 5 years and
fucking time.
Years to do it. Yeah. Hey, I'm a league champ. It's all right. It's okay. It's good.
Hey, I'm not saying you're not decent. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But shit.
But one of the things that I liked about doing it that way is that it allowed me to find my flexibility in my budgets moving forward. Instead of just saying I'm going to take $5 away from running back, it's like the specific running back, and that was what I really like doing it. So what I do is with pen and paper is I just hash out 7 different scenarios or whatever, right? And I write them all down. And what would it look like if I spent one of the budgets I looked at was no more than a $20 receiver, and what does that look like?
It's rough. Well, it's good elsewhere.
And you know what? It actually looks pretty good, because it means you're going to spend good on running back, and there's a lot of decent guys with upside, right? If you build it right, if you build a Fitzgerald that's going to give you a high floor, and then you jump at some ceilings.
Well, I was going to say, what's the one position where you think you're most flexible? I find wide receiver 2 to me gives me a ton of flexibility, and that being said, I know most times I'm going very cheap at tight end, and I know most times I'm going very cheap at quarterback. So then I find I always want to try and get one very good wide receiver. That's just me. I mean, so at wide receiver 2, what I find sometimes is you end up getting in, say, this $40 range. And what sometimes happens is you get, like the Jordy Nelsons, the AJ Greens, obviously, they go for, they're $50, $45 type thing. Sorry, probably closer to 50. But then you get guys like Mike Thomas, and I always say, okay, if I'm going to spend about $40, I want to try and get a Mike Thomas. I want to try and get Doug Ball. I want to try and get maybe not a lot of people, but at least some of those kinds of guys, and they're not necessarily there all the time at that price. I've been in a lot of drafts where Mike Thomas goes for like $50, and where all of a sudden that price range just kind of dries up, and now you're left with nothing that you like at that price. So now you have to you got no choice. You're like, nah. Why would I spend $40 on a guy that's worth $25 or $30?
Yeah, you can easily cut 10 or 12 off.
I'll make my plays on the next tier, kind of thing. And so I find wide receiver 2 is a place where I can be really flexible, and that's an extreme example. I mean, not extreme, but you could even get lower, where say you want to put $30 on them. Well, if guys like Demaryius Thomas or maybe Devontae Adams, if you're that high on him, or Sammy Watkins, if you're that high on him, DeAndre Hopkins, if those guys don't, or they go for higher than what you're thinking there, all of a sudden, well, now I'm taking $5 off, or even $10 off, and I'm dropping down to, the Michael Crabtrees and that kind of tier. So it's kind of that tier where it gives you a lot of flexibility depending on how your draft is. And I mean, you could end up with, I've ended up in a lot of drafts where, I have Michael Crabtree, Devontae Adams, guys like that as my wide receiver 2. And I'm okay with that because I have them as this kind of like a wide receiver 14-ish range in my rankings. It's not terrible. I mean, if you want 2 wide receiver 1s, yeah, maybe that's not ideal, but if everybody's going for a lot more than you're expecting, then maybe that's not a bad consolation prize.
Well, in Blister, I felt the same way with RB too. I felt like there was a lot of flexibility there. If you didn't want to spend, the $40 range, you could easily drop down and pick Team Geritol and go, J Stu and Gore and those guys. Yeah, exactly. But you could draft that team, have a couple of them on your bench, and just kind of roll with the punches there. Blister, what are you looking at? Where do you find some flexibility in your auction budgeting?
Well, that's a good point. Like I think you look at the positions, and I think you can. A lot of people instantly will think about saving money at quarterback or tight end in a typical budget, not talking Superflex. And I think I was listening to the radio channel there again today, and it's one of those things where last year, a couple years ago, 2015 was the year like the running backs are getting banged up, and then last year the receivers kind of did. And so they said it's quite a wide variety this year in a lot of the drafting that's going on. Like some teams are starting off with four receivers, some people are starting off with 3 running backs, and it's quite a bit of variety this year compared to other years. And I think after last, too many people have that recency bias, right? They're going to remember what happened to them last year. For me, I had a lot of receivers get banged up and really let me down. So, you got to remember that, forget about last year. This is a new year. How is it going to work out? And you can really, you can get some decent running backs down there that, they're not the flashy David Johnson or Lev Bells, but, Amir Abdullah and Spencer Ware, and then some of their backups, and Theo Riddick and Danny Woodhead, and, Terrence West is starting for a while.
Yeah.
And you can get Dougie Martin at a discount because he's suspended, so you could draft Quiz Rogers if you wanted to get you through the first 3 games. Like you could piece together a pretty cheap starting running back group that could potentially
Darren McFadden or whoever Slim thinks is starting at the Cowboys.
So you can do that. There's a lot of value there. I think that with a lot of the receivers, I still think that with receiver, you want guys that are going to play, and I always find it's easier to, I got to keep reminding myself it's easier to replace a running back than it is a wide receiver, because, if Julio Jones goes down, you're not going to get the same production from Mohamed Sanu or anybody else on that team. And, if what scares me about Antonio Brown is Big Ben, Antonio's not the same receiver without Big Ben, and Big Ben is injury prone, and he's got retirement in the back of his mind, so I don't know how hard he's going to go at it. And so you want to get those receivers.
He looks like Gibson.
Yeah, and then you got that tier, with Garcon, Willie Snead, and Stephon Diggs, and guys like that. And they could be very solid, but they're not going to be Mike Evans, and they're not going to be Odell. They're going to be solid, but you can't rely on them solely, I don't think. So. I think you're going to look for value. It's definitely going to have to be at running back, like between those 2 positions, and try to piece together. The thing is, it all depends on how big your bench is too, right? We have an 8-player bench, so we have a little more luxury to play that strategy. Whereas if some leagues have a 4-player bench or 6 or smaller, you might not have that luxury to have that depth. They're going to be out there in the waiver wire, so maybe you go after and spend more on the big name starters, because that the backups and everybody are on the waiver wire anyway. So I think that's a good strategy to look at. Spending money on receivers still not a bad idea, even if the scoring is less. I mean, you're not comparing the receiver to the running back. You're comparing your receiver 1 compared to your receiver 12 to your receiver 20, 30, 40, and so on. And so if you can nail down 3 receivers in the top 18 or something, that might give you a big advantage over the next guy who doesn't have a receiver really that could finish in the top 24.
I love
Slim, but I was just going to say, it brings up a good point about the idea of being able to replace that running back with the waiver wire. I love that premise of.
This is what I was going to get into.
Good, go.
Yes. Well, a couple things. One is yeah, you brought up the recency bias. To me, that's one thing I like to look at as a drafter. I want to go and say, okay, um, what happened at the end of last year? What are people remembering? Um, who are players that maybe burnt certain individuals? Can I capitalize? Like, I'll be honest, on Bex, like we were involved in a big kind of dynasty trade. I bought Allen Robinson off of you. Uh, Michael Thomas was involved. I gave him to you. Part of that was I was hoping, yeah, that you were maybe frustrated with Allen Robinson. I had a couple redraft teams as well. I'm hoping he bounces back. I believe he's a very talented receiver. There's no reason he shouldn't bounce back. I mean, quarterback play is definitely going to influence that, but talent profile alone, he should be able to bounce back. But guys like Keenan Allen, he could be a value. Whatever you think of him, some people don't think, oh, the volume's going to be there. I personally think they're going to throw the ball quite a fair amount. Keenan Allen is a guy that I might want to target because some people think, he's just going to get hurt. I don't want that guy on my team. He's just going to be injured. So there's that recency bias that if you can tie into that or use it somehow to get a value, I think you have to do that. And part of that recency bias goes to RB0. RB0 was huge last year, and for a lot of people, it didn't come to fruition. Why? Because we had this kind of outlier year in terms of points scored by running backs. We had guys like David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell just light it up, and it made people think, look, we need a top running back. These guys are sick. They just score shit pile of points. And yes, those guys do if they stay healthy. One thing was not a lot of top running backs got hurt, and if they did, it wasn't until the very end of the year, or it didn't necessarily, negatively impact your fantasy team overall. So people are forgetting the fragility of that running back position, and it brings up Lister's point where if you can go and spend cheap at running back, and again, like this could be the very contrarian play that's going to win you a title because no one's thinking that. What we're seeing right now is running back prices are higher than they have been in the last few years, and that's because everybody thinks they need a top running back. And yes, it's nice to have. That is a nice little security blanket. If you're like my son, you'll fall asleep really nice with that little piece of velvet beside your face every night. It'll just calm you right down. You'll be good to go. But it's not necessary. Like, you have to maybe try to think, maybe this is the time to think outside the box, especially if you know your league. If you think everybody's going to prioritize running back, well, like you said, Box, go geriatric. Maybe load up on a lot of those old guys that are going to get lots of touches. They still have some upside. They're being greatly undervalued. And like Lister said, you just stack your wide receivers and you just shit stomp everybody else there. And, you stream the running back position. And when some of these guys end up getting hurt, we've seen J.H.I. is already in concussion protocol. It's only a matter of time. Yeah, these guys are going to get injured. It is the most nasty and dangerous position, maybe in sports. Like, it happens. These guys are going to get hurt. We saw it at the end of the year with David Johnson. He's not invincible either. Like, you can go spend $70 on him, and that guy could go down. So, that's my one caution. And to me, that is the one thing I'm having to decide the hardest between. Do I want to buy one very good running back, or do I want to go RBs here?
Yeah, and that's what you got to play with. It's you can't win unless you roll the dice, but it's like how many dice are you rolling, right? That's if you play it safe. I mean,
there's a risk
you're gonna.
Element.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
And that's where RB0, I think, to the average person becomes scary because they look at their roster and they say, "Oh, I'm starting Frank Gore and
Paul." Yeah,
and that just looks scary to me. But they're not looking at their bench and saying, "All right, I got 3 other really solid dudes. I'll pick the best matchup in the week, and in week 6, when guys like Zeke Elliott still aren't playing, Jay Ajayi's hurt with another concussion, and maybe Devontae Freeman's banged up with a pulled hammy, and those top guys aren't all playing, then, hey, this doesn't look so bad. You know, like I'm averaging 25 points per week for my 2 running back spots with these cheap-ass dudes that I'm streaming pretty well. They've got good matchups. Did my homework. If it's a PPR league, I got some PPR upside in those guys. So like, there's all those elements to play. I mean, you got to get over the fact that what your starting lineup might look like on, that, oh my God, I don't have a top 10 guy. I don't think the top 10 guys are necessarily that great. That's kind of
well,
obviously Henry Bell and David Johnson are awesome, but like, do you want to spend that much on Jordan Howard, or would you rather spend that much on 3 guys that could do what Jordan Howard does?
Right.
Jordan Howard was a flash in the pan. So that's kind of where you got to get to. Like, where is your mind going to go?
And Blister, talking about the sexy names, when I was working on my stuff today with the pen and paper, when I go in my tier and I say I'm going to draft 2 guys from this tier, let's say, I tried to intentionally pull a name out of there that is not sexy, a guy that I may not necessarily like, and then take a look at my team at face value and say, oh, hey, how do these names, how do they resonate with me when I see my team at the end of this quote-unquote fake draft that I'm doing? But I intentionally pull those crappy names out of that tier and put them on my paper so that I know what this team could look like in the draft if I decide to go with this budget. Do you do anything with your sexy names or any rounds about that way? I mean, Blister is a sexy name, by the way.
Well, yeah, right there is pretty sexy. You know what? I got. That's what I was thinking about, kind of before you said that. When someone was still talking, I was thinking, if I started doing some, like basically what you did, Bex, pen and paper, and putting some different numbers to different positions and seeing what the team will look like. Yeah, I take into consideration like the names in that tier, right? Some of these names are going to go for more money than others based on knowing your competition, right? And a guy like Alshon Jeffrey in Philadelphia, for example, now he still might be a favorite of the Bears fan, and
right.
And things like that. You got to think that Brandon Cooks, or even more so, I think Ty Montgomery, we brought him up earlier. We kind of all like him for the value where the price is going, and he's in a great offense. But then if you throw in a couple Packers fans, they'll pay their left nut to have him on their team because they want to be able to cheer for not only their fantasy team but their real team. It's going to be probably could get out of your price range. And then there's other guys that, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins had a bad season last year, but he's a talented player, and I don't think he can get worse at quarterback. And but guys are going to probably shy away from him. So you might, when you look at the tier I have him in, there's other guys like Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks that's in New England, and guys like that I think Jarvis Landry too. Guys like that have been solid, but they also they're young, and Brandon Cooks is going to Tom Brady. So not that Drew Brees wasn't good, but there's guys like that I think when you look at them, they're going to be the flashier toy in that tier versus Demaryius Thomas, who doesn't have a quarterback, or Golden Tate and guys like that I have in the same tier. So yeah, I consider that like what I might be able to get, and which guys might create a bit of a bidding war and which guys might not.
Right. And so, Slim, speaking of bidding wars, we were talking off air just before we got on. I said, save it for the pod. We're in a new Superflex in our big home league. And so there's going to be a lot of changes to price points and, roster constructions. But you also had some ideas around nominations and how you might go around this new league scoring and attack that from a nomination standpoint.
Yeah, I think in a super flex, I am probably, and again, this goes down to how you know your league. In our league, I think I am going to, I'm praying that I get a top 3 nomination. I don't know why. I just feel like I like having the power of tossing out somebody that I think can rattle the cages of some people very early in the draft.
Slim, can I give you a timeout quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so and on that note, I just love that you're saying that you want a top 3 nomination because you like the power in that first round. I've always disliked one of the guys at CBS and what they do with their different stuff. However, the other guy at CBS, I saw this. I was trolling for auction stuff on Twitter the other day.
Yep.
Asked him, that I follow actually, and follows me, asked him if having a first round nomination or being early in the first round of nominations, ask for some strategy around that, or does it really mean anything if you just throw out any old guy? And the other guy, not Dave Richards, said it really it makes no difference. It doesn't matter where you're slotted as far as nomination order. It makes absolutely no difference. And then I think I responded something along the lines, well, if it makes no difference, then you're not doing it right.
Well,
and I just left it at that. And of course, Mr. Eisenberg didn't respond, but yes.
Well, it doesn't make a difference in the sense that every player is going to get nominated at some point. But
sure.
I mean, no.
It obviously makes a difference. You want a top 3.
Well, I do. I mean, I shouldn't even say top. Maybe it's top 5. I mean, if I know I want to nominate a quarterback, so say in a Superflex league, I'd probably top 5 is fine. In that range, I'll still be able to nominate kind of a mid-tier quarterback. The guy I was kind of talking about before we got on the show was Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm not sure how I feel about him as a kind of a measuring stick, because he carries a lot of name recognition. I don't want that. I want to gauge what people are willing to pay in a Superflex for, not the top tier quarterbacks, but I know those guys are going to go for a fair amount of money. What are the kind of the mid-tier guys going to go for? So I want a guy in that range. And so for me, guys that fall in there are, Kirk Cousins, Jameis Winston, things like that. But I don't know how the regular people view those guys. I know that people hold Ben Roethlisberger in high esteem for some reason. So I want to see, to me, he's a good kind of measuring stick. And at least I can see maybe at least even the high end of what people are willing to pay at quarterbacks. If it's not a Superflex league, what I want to nominate, it completely depends on my strategy. If I'm not going like a top end running back, then I'm going to throw out Le'Veon Bell, I'm going to throw out Dave Johnson, that's the cliche. Or if I'm top 3, I know those guys are going to go for a lot, I might just go for a guy in that next tier that I don't want. Let's just peel off a little bit of cash. Plus, I will also set a little bit of a value for myself. So, for example, maybe I don't like Melvin Gordon, but I'm kind of hoping to buy LaShawn McCoy. So maybe I throw out Melvin Gordon for an overall pick, because I know that if Le'Veon or David Johnson didn't go ahead of me, they're probably going to go very quickly after me, and Melvin Gordon's price is going to tell me roughly maybe what I should expect to buy LaShawn McCoy at, and I'm kind of hoping that that's, he comes out fairly quickly. I don't have to wait too long. So those are kinds of things that I maybe look for if I'm drafting very early in the draft.
Is there anything, Blister, that you look at if you have an early nomination order? What are some of the things you're looking at?
Well, one of the things I was actually toying with was thinking, okay, if I'm content with, say I'm going to spend X number of dollars at running back, and then this is my positions, which means then I know that I'm not going to, say I'm going to spend high on running back, and I want to spend a little more at tight end and quarterback than normal or whatever. That somewhere's got to give, right? So I'm going to have to
Right.
lower at wide receiver. And early on in the first round, if I think I'm content to start my team as my wide receiver 1 with Dougie Baldwin or Demaryius Thomas or somebody from my third tier, if I think I'll be happy if I can get one of them as my wide receiver 1, and I'm early on and there's still 7 or 8 guys left in the top 2 tiers, I think that's the time maybe to throw that name out there, because people are going to say, he's worth $25, but once you get up there or something, they're going to start thinking, geez, there's still Jordy Nelson, Michael Thomas, T.Y., Dez, AJ, and I think that's your best chance of getting them. Versus now, if the top 2 tiers are completely gone, and Demaryius and that solid, say that wide or the tier 3, as I consider tier 3, is what's the best ones that are left. Now, a guy like Demaryius Thomas might cost $5 or $6 more than what you were willing to pay, and maybe that $5 or $6 more is maybe $10 or $12 more than what he would be worth if you nominated him early on, when the top 2 tiers were basically still all out there. So that's something I think that is a good strategy. Like, I always want to get money spent, especially on guys I'm not interested in, but like we said before, and we all know that if those are the best perceived receivers or players available at that position, they're gonna cost a lot more money than what you're willing to pay sometimes.
I agree with you, Blister. I know, and I will say I know that you love getting money spent. Like, I've drafted you enough where you get upset when people are like nominating kickers in like the first round. What the fuck? Like, let's get some money off the board. And I agree.
Rookie? Yeah.
And we listen to or hear or read different auction things that guys have put out. And one of maybe like the top 3 rules they ever put out was doing an auction. You nominate players you don't want. And to me, that is like, it's like the most basic thing though. If you drafted in the draft with the same guys for a couple of years, to do that same strategy is just, that's so bush league. Like, it doesn't fool anybody. You have to, at that point, start thinking, okay, and it's like Blister said, maybe I want this guy. Maybe I really want Doug Baldwin. So I'm going to throw him out there at the 3rd overall nomination. A lot of people, their intuitiveness, their conventional wisdom is going to tell them, fuck, he doesn't want that guy. And I've done this with quarterbacks, where typically I go very, very cheap at quarterback. And in the last few years, and knowing our league, and again, knowing the league, has completely devalued quarterback, I'll nominate a quarterback with the intention of maybe buying him. If I can get this guy for $10, fuck it. I'm nominating him to buy because I'm thinking people are just thinking, everybody knows he doesn't want a quarterback. He's nominating Russell Wilson because he doesn't care. And then you just kind of let everyone bid, and all of a sudden, okay, $12 right at the very end. And now, what's he doing? And maybe that drives the price up because it makes people think, oh, geez, maybe he really wants him, and now I got to outbid him, or whatever, and you get into a little thing going on. Or maybe you just get him because, like Blister said, it's early on, and people are like, I got a shit ton of money left. I don't need to spend that on this guy. I can go buy someone else, like completely different. So I'm a big fan of nominating mid-tier guys. I don't mean mid-tier like tiers like 8, 9 kind of thing. Like, that's way too late. But like, go to your tier 3, your tier 4. Find the guys you really want and that you think are good values, that you've seen as good values for a long time, and nominate those guys. And if they're not those values, then don't buy them. But chances are you're probably going to do fairly well. And you could get bid. Like, you could buy a guy that you think is going to be awesome, and then you're going to see some better values come along later. But there's nothing you could do about it. You can't play that hindsight game.
You know what? So, I could almost guarantee, like, if you denominated Demaryius Thomas or Dougie Baldwin or guys that you have in your 3rd tier, and you nominated them in that first round of the auction draft, where there's only 12 players are going to go in that first round, I bet you those guys will cost you way less than they would down the road when you're down. The first 2 tiers are all gone. I just think that people are going to keep holding back for, Mike Evans and AJ and all those guys. So they're not going to go. So I think if you wanted a guy on from the third tier, then the time to do that would be nominating him in the first round. And then
I don't know about Baldwin.
Yeah, he might go a little bit more. Yeah,
I just think the jig is up on him. I think people are realizing that.
Yeah, people like him. Good, he's been top 10 the last couple of years, right?
Like, Marius is old. Everyone thinks, well, fuck, the quarterback sucks. But you know, Marius is still sick. He's sweet. They're going to have to throw the ball sometime, and they're going to throw to their number one dude. And
you know what? And the flip side of that, too, is that might work in our auction where we know those guys well, and they know the game pretty well, and they'll be doing their homework.
Right? We just gave a lot of secrets out, boys.
Yeah. And then
they're not listening.
Like, I got a draft tomorrow night with a bunch of guys that'll be probably new to auction and just guys that aren't in tune as much. And throwing a guy like Demarius out in the first round would be no different probably than throwing out a guy like AJ Green in the first round. Like, they're gonna go nuts because they're first time auctioners, a lot of them. There's only going to be a couple of veterans, and they're going to be all over that. So, it wouldn't work. So you really got to know your audience. You got to know your competition, because you're not just playing the auction board. You're playing those 11 people across. It's just like playing a game of Texas Hold'em. You got to not just play the cards. You got to play the people too. So that's a big strategy. And, some people don't all have that luxury because they don't know the people they're playing against. So in those cases, you got to just play them like they're first timers, and that they're not going to have
first timers.
Well,
and I think that's important because we talk about that auction horseshoe all the time, but that's in a vacuum, right? That's like when you're just looking at that tier in a vacuum. I think you guys make a great point. You're throwing out the first guy in a tier. Well, that goes against the auction horseshoe. Well, it's in a vacuum, right? So you also have to look at situation, and you have to look at supply and demand, all those kind of basic rules when you do it. I think you guys make some great points. I think you could do it at quarterback with a guy like Phillip Rivers or Matt Stafford. I think you could do it at running back with a who could you throw in there, like a Tevin Coleman or any of those types of guys where you're gonna get those guys.
I find you
got a recent value.
You got to be careful if you go too cheap. Like, you throw it a guy that's too cheap, it's too easy to upbid.
Too easy to read. Yeah.
Well, it's just too easy. If a guy goes for $5, most people. So say you really want a guy, like you had him in your budget. I really liked Phillip Rivers. I wanted him as my quarterback. He was going to be my quarterback too in Superflex, for example. And he goes to 6. It's real easy for a guy to say, "Oh, fuck it, I'm going to 7." Like, we're not talking about big amounts of money. You need to find that amount of money. Like, to me, like $25, $30 is kind of that magic number of cash in a $200 budget where it makes people really think twice of, fuck, do I have to spend $5 more? Do I got to spend $10 more? You know what? I didn't have that in my budget anyway. Or there's, like was said, or you guys have talked. There's 3 other guys for that same amount of money. I can just go get him. Like, that's why, like, for me, I think, AJ Green, for example. If you really believe in AJ Green and you got the first nomination, nominate his ass, because you might get that guy for like $45. It's the first nomination of draft. People are settling down. If someone wants a big name receiver, anybody that's in that building still says, "Wow, guess what? Beckham, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, those guys, they're all still there. Why am I bidding big money on AJ Green?
I'm going to wash my hands. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm done. I don't care. I know these guys are coming. There's still 3 more dudes coming after him that I got a chance to get. And those are the guys I really wanted anyway. So, I mean, and if I was number 2 and I wanted that same guy, I'd say Jordy Nelson, because I want them. Let's go. Let's see what happens. I'm going to try to ride that train and hope that those guys that really want those receivers are going to just be like, okay, they're still there. Those guys are still there. I want I'm going to hold out for Odell Beckham. I'm going to hold out. And then maybe a few of those guys get in a big bidding war. You'll probably see one of them go for $70. But, yeah, again, got to know the draft.
It's great points. I love that auctions got to the point in popularity that we can say, oh, that's old strategy, right? Like, it's looking at, 4 or 5 years ago, what was you nominate a kicker, you nominate a defense, you get your deal. You paid $2 for the Seattle defense, you sucker. And I mean, we were there too, right? But the game has evolved and auction has evolved and more people are doing it, and you need to be much more savvy than to just follow what was still happening 8 years ago.
Well, it's like poker. I firmly believe fantasy football is like poker. I mean, I could throw 1,000 analogies out, whether it's dynasty or redraft, but
and Benny.
But like, if you're drafting an auction, you need to mask your hand. So you need to do things that people aren't expecting, so they don't know exactly what you're doing. Maybe that means you're bluffing sometimes, and maybe that means actually you're making it look like a bluff, but you really have a strong hand. And that means you're throwing out a guy that you really want to buy. Like there's all these analogies.
Sounds like a great article that you're going to release soon.
You know what? If we were a dynasty podcast, it's super easy, but we ain't diving into that niche. We're still trying to carve out this one.
Yeah.
Just flooded now.
Speaking of time, guys, I'm either worried that my truck's going to run out of battery because I'm sitting on auxiliary right now, or that the generator is going to be off by the time I get back to the cabin. One way or the other. That's it's about time we cut this. It's good. We had some good stuff out there.
It's probably one of our longest pods of the year, actually. It was the shittiest produced.
Well, the worst intro. Yeah. I'll give you the worst intro, but we had some good stuff last week with Jody. This is some good stuff about how to build some of your strategy and some new age auction thinking when you're getting into your nomination strategy and those types of things. And then Slim, we've got some we're doing some guest appearances, I guess, here in the next couple of days. I'm on the 24/7 podcast tomorrow night. So they're going to be talking some auction. I think maybe some AFC West while I'm out on the pod tomorrow night too. And then in a couple of nights, where are you, Slim?
I'm on the Eat Sleep Fantasy Football podcast. So yeah, they just want to talk about some auction stuff. Sounds like people are getting a little interested, and they wanted to have kind of the only auction podcast and website on to discuss a little strategy and things. So they reached out to us.
Right on.
Thankfully, I was open that night.
Awesome, boys.
We hitting it up. Yeah.
Good stuff. So
look forward to that.
Watch for Slim or listen for Slim on that one. I'm going to be on the 24/7 tomorrow night, and with that in mind, make sure you head on over to thefantasyfootballauction.com. Check out our auction values and articles that are on there. Click on the members area. On there, it'll show you what you get if you get a membership. $14.95 gets you all the articles, gets you all the downloads. We're talking about their tiers coming out. My cheat sheet will hopefully be coming out too. I usually put the one I actually bring to our big auction right on the site when I'm making it anyways. It has my tiers, it's color coded, you can download all that. And if you're just interested in the sheets themselves, it's patreon.com/fantasyfootballauction, and you can just purchase them from there. And on that note, I just dropped the Fugazi name blister, right? He was the guy from the Data Force, right? And he just tweeted me, what? You're on there? What? Send him he just DM me. What's the link? Because he's going to drop drop $1 probably in our tip jar.
Nice.
So that's pretty good too.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So anyways, I just saw it come through. I got the phone propped up on my steering wheel right now as we wrap up the pod. So
all right.
Nothing classier. And Slim, just for you
Plus
and for Ross.
His Avi on Twitter is the shit too.
It is true. You're 100% right. And Slim, for you and for Ross tonight in the truck, parked without any keys in it.
You got a blue. I'm drinking blues right now.
I have blue, but you can't see it. Anyways,
I showed mine.
all right, Blister, have fun with the in-laws. Slim,
thanks.
hopefully you get to sleep in till about 6:35 tomorrow morning.
Well, that beat 5:30. So, yes, sir.
All right.
All right, boys.
All right, so I guess I'll see you guys soon. And for the rest of you, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.
Sorry, boys.
That's all right. I can take that off.
Bush League. I apologize.
All right.